So today, one of the strands turned off, but I know it's still working because the second strand is turning on. So there's still electricity going through here. I will have to check every bulb to figure out why it won't turn on. But anyway, onto our yarn. Hello, dear friends, and welcome to day 13 of Vlogmas. You'd think that filming every day, you would remember the days better, but that is not true. So today's little project is I'm gonna pour some resin. What I've learned from pouring resin is that you never stop learning. That's definitely something for every kind of craft, but especially resin. There's just so much to it that you never stop learning. So I've got some coffee because we need extra power today. And first step is cleaning these. If you want a perfectly clear resin, we are gonna clean our molds with some rubbing alcohol, and I use a towel. I've tried using paper towel before, but it left behind a lot of the paper residue. And I got my mixing cup, and got quite a few molds here. I think I'm gonna fix the camera because I feel like I'm hunched down to see you guys. So, one sec. That's a little better. Okay. So, the molds I have today. Sorry. I'll stop touching my hair. The molds I have today are some crystal molds, which are, I don't know if I have some pre-made ones here, but I have a bunch of made ones that like semi-worked, but they never worked enough. I can't find them. But anyway, some crystal molds. And I have this crystal mold, which is my favorite. It creates just a little one that has a little hole in it for stringing. And then I've got some gummy bears, which are my favorite molds right now. I had bought these thinking that they would be small enough for progress keepers, but they were just way too big and way too heavy once they were done. So what I'm gonna make these as are, they're gonna be attached to be zipper pulls. I don't know why that's hard to say. But zipper pulls on the candy fabric that I had got from Spoonflower that I showed a few days ago in Vlogmas. That fabric is just being washed right now, just pre-shrunk. And then probably gonna get to sewing bags maybe tomorrow. Just depends. And then this mold is my most used mold for sure, which shows because there's a bunch of dried resin on there. But this is my just little sphere molds, which are used to create these ones that I make into earrings and some progress keepers. This is actually a bunch that I made out of an old pearl necklace that I had that I found. I never wore it, but I knew that it could be given a new life in some resin. So that's what I did. And I'll probably put these into the shop one day. They have some kinks to them because they were beads. They held a lot of air, and I found that it created a lot of air bubbles in it. So I have to find a way to fix those air bubbles. But anyway, and then my final molds. This is very exciting. I'm gonna have to grab it here. Okay, I have the molds for tiny little mugs. And these are gonna become some butter beers, or beer, it depends on how you look at it, but I want to call them butter beer. And this will be put into the shop. My plan is, instead of having one update every week and putting in very little updates, I'm going to do one on the 1st of every month, and they're going to be really big updates starting January 1st. For 2021, that will be my goal. It'll be an experiment. Like this year, I tried to do every Friday, which was fun, but I want to try once a month and see how that goes. But anyway, I will get on to cleaning these molds so we can get to the fun part of resin pouring, which is the actual resin. Okay, so these are all clean. I've done my best to try and get rid of glitter and dust, because those are probably the most tricky things to get out. I've got my resin here. I just use art resin, which comes as like the resin itself, and then a hardener. I bought mine off of shadesofclay.com, which is also where I get my polymer clay. They are fantastic. And yeah, so I'm going to be doing 2 different types of resin pours. One is going to be clear for the mugs, and then I'm going to be adding some orange glitters and a little bit of yellow and a little bit of white here to make a really cool mix. And this is going to go along with the I'm blanking here, the mushroom and crystal fabric that I had. So the very important tools to have while resin pouring is coffee or some other caffeinated drink that will keep you awake as you do this, a heat gun for getting rid of bubbles, and gloves to protect yourself, because it's so sticky and also not good for skin contact. And I think a stirring stick, which I'm just going to use a popsicle stick. And yeah, so that's about it. I think I'm also going to try and repair. I have some mugs that didn't quite work out because of air bubbles that got into there, and like the handle didn't fully complete because an air bubble broke it. But yeah, so one more sip of coffee and then I'll get pouring. So I usually just put a glove on one hand because I find that it's really hard to grip stuff with these gloves on. They're not exactly my size, but that's okay. These are actually brand new bottles, which I am super excited about. Get this out of here. Come on. There we go. Just put you there. Oh, I should probably open the other one before I start pouring. If it does get on your skin, don't worry about it. You have, the rubbing alcohol works as something to clean it off as well. And yeah, so don't panic. For any other resin, I would be very, very careful. But this one is a non-toxic, no BPA. It's probably the healthiest resin out there. That's a weird word to say, but that's kind of it. Whereas it's safe. It's not exactly completely safe, but it's safer than any other resin out there. So I've got lines just in the cup. I'm going to do my best to pour this very carefully. There we go. So this is where it's helpful to only have one glove on, because you can scrape with one and then just put on the lid with the other, because this one is going to get messy and your hand is not. Let's see here. Okay. So you just add in equal parts resin and hardener. Go. And now we mix, and I'm going to use the heat gun to warm it up at the same time so that most of the bubbles get out of the resin, so that we can get as clear of a casting as possible. The trick when casting resin that I found is that patience is your best friend. When it comes to the CC, there's still quite a few little bubbles in there. I'm going to take my heat gun here, and I don't blast it continually. That would probably melt my silicone cup and probably not be too safe for the resin. But we give it a little heat blast real quick, and it pops the bubbles on the top, and then you stir carefully. Come on. And when the resin is warm, the bubbles are able to rise to the top faster. When pouring this resin, as soon as you mix the hardener in, you have 45 minutes until it starts really hardening. You could probably work with it a little bit after, but it's going to be a really thick paste that's difficult and catches a lot of bubbles. So we're trying to just be patient. I usually give this like 15 minutes to really get this all the bubbles out and as clear as possible. Okay, so we're gonna pour our first little mug here, and actually I'm just gonna use the stick because it gets resin stuck on it. Just gonna drip that in there ever so carefully. Now because this is hot, it's pouring a lot easier than, say, if I had done this like maybe 20 minutes ago. So that's a good sign because all the bubbles are going to get to it and get a chance to escape. So you see, like if I squeeze it, I'm going to squeeze those air bubbles out so that it can get into all the areas, especially to get into the handle of the mug. Going to keep going. As soon as it lowers, add more. I'm just going to do it with all of these, and I'll show you when I add the glitter because that is the best part. Need more glitter. There is our finished product. And I'm just going to try and take out some bubbles, and then we can start pouring these. So here we are. Everything's poured. I've added some stuff to fix these handles. Got some orbs here, and the mugs, and we're just gonna let that sit for 24 hours. So we'll see how they turned out tomorrow.